Christmas parties. A time for festive cheer, mulled wine, and maybe a slightly embarrassing dance-off with your boss. But behind the tinsel and fake snow, sometimes things can take a seriously creepy turn. We've all heard stories about office party mishaps, but tonight we're diving into something much darker. These aren't just awkward moments. These are 3 allegedly true Christmas party horror stories that will make you think twice about your next holiday gathering. So grab a cup of hot cocoa, maybe lock your doors, and let's get started. Our first story comes from a user named Clara, who worked for a small, tight-knit marketing firm. The company was known for its extravagant Christmas parties, and this year was no exception. It was held at a lavish, old-fashioned hotel downtown. Everything was going perfectly. Food was great, the music was cheesy but fun, and everyone was in high spirits. Clara was chatting with some colleagues near the grand staircase when she noticed the CEO, Mr. Abernathy, acting strangely. He was a usually jovial, if a bit eccentric, older man. But tonight he seemed distracted. He kept glancing over his shoulder, his eyes wide and fearful. Clara figured he'd just had a bit too much to drink. Later in the evening, the annual Secret Santa gift exchange began. When it was Mr. Abernathy's turn to receive his gift, he opened a small, beautifully wrapped box. Inside was an antique silver locket. He went pale. He stared at it for a long moment, then excused himself abruptly, looking genuinely terrified. The party mood soured a bit, and people started whispering. Clara, being nosy, asked the person who gave the gift where they got it. It was a young intern who said he found it at a vintage shop and thought it looked nice. He had no idea what the big deal was. The party wrapped up early, and the whole incident was just weird. The next Monday, Mr. Abernathy didn't come into the office. Or the day after. By Wednesday, the company announced he had resigned for personal reasons and had moved away. No one ever saw him again. Years later, Clara was talking to a former senior manager who had been with the company for decades. She brought up the strange party. The manager got quiet and told her a rumor she'd heard long ago. Before Mr. Abernathy started the company, his first business partner, a woman, had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The last thing anyone remembered seeing her wear was an identical silver locket. The intern had unknowingly brought a ghost from his past to the Christmas party, and it was enough to make him disappear for good. Our second story is about a young man named Ben, who was invited to his girlfriend's family Christmas party for the first time. He was nervous, wanting to make a good impression. Her family lived in a huge, sprawling house in the countryside, the kind that's been passed down for generations. The party was in full swing when he arrived, with dozens of relatives he'd never met. His girlfriend Sarah introduced him to her parents, who were polite but a little distant. Her grandfather, a stern-looking man in a wheelchair, just stared at him without saying a word. Ben tried to brush it off as typical meet-the-family jitters. As the night went on, he noticed something odd. A lot of the family members had a particular physical trait, a very distinct crescent-shaped scar on their left wrist. Sarah had one too, which she'd always passed off as a childhood accident. When he casually asked one of her cousins about it, the man just smiled thinly and said, "It's a family tradition." Ben felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. Later, Sarah's grandfather called him over. His voice was a raspy whisper. He pointed a shaky finger at a series of old family portraits on the wall. "You see them? What of us? Since the 1800s, we are a family of survivors." Ben looked closer. In every portrait, going back centuries, each person had that same crescent-shaped scar on their wrist, even in the black and white photos. Just then, Sarah's father clapped a heavy hand on Ben's shoulder. "Glad you could make it, son," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We always have a special initiation for new members of the family at Christmas." He then pulled out a small, curved, ceremonial-looking knife from his pocket. He explained it was a rite of passage, a tradition to prove one's loyalty and become truly part of the family. They weren't just showing him a tradition, they expected him to participate. Ben made an excuse about needing the restroom, slipped out the back door, got in his car, and drove off without looking back. He never spoke to Sarah again, but he'll never forget the feeling of being the main event in a twisted family ritual disguised as a Christmas party. Our final story is perhaps the most unsettling. It was posted on a forum by a woman named Maria, a nurse who worked the night shift at a hospital. Every year, the hospital threw a Christmas party for the staff who had to work over the holidays. It was a small affair held in a decorated break room on an otherwise quiet floor. This particular year, the party was on the pediatric wing, which was eerily empty except for one long-term patient, a little boy named Sam, who was in a coma. The nurses did their best to make the room festive, but there was always a somber undertone, knowing Sam was just down the hall. Around midnight, one of the newer nurses, a young woman named Chloe, said she was going to check on Sam. She was gone for a while. When she came back, she was visibly shaken. She said that when she entered Sam's room, she heard a faint sound. It sounded like a child humming jingle bells. She assumed it was the radio, but there was no radio on. The humming seemed to be coming from Sam himself. The other nurses were skeptical. It was a stressful time of year, and the mind can play tricks. They tried to calm Chloe down, but she insisted. She said his lips were moving slightly. A senior nurse, tired of the commotion, went to check for herself. A few minutes later, she ran back into the break room, her face white as a sheet. "You need to see this," she whispered. The group of nurses quietly filed into Sam's room. The humming was real, was faint, but it was unmistakably jingle bells, and it was coming from the comatose boy. But that wasn't the worst part. As they stood there, frozen in shock and awe, Sam's eyes slowly opened. They weren't his normal soft brown eyes. They were completely black. He turned his head, a motion he hadn't made in months, and looked directly at them. He smiled, a wide, unnatural smile, and whispered in a voice that was not his own. "Merry Christmas." The nurses fled the room in terror, calling for doctors and security. By the time help arrived, Sam was exactly as he had been before his closed, unresponsive, in a deep coma. There was no medical explanation for what happened. The hospital's official report chalked it up to a collective hallucination brought on by stress. But Maria and the other nurses who were there know what they saw and heard. They never held the Christmas party on that floor again. And that's all the time we have for tonight. It just goes to show you that horror isn't confined to haunted houses or dark forests. Sometimes it's waiting for you right under the mistletoe. I hope these stories have given you a festive fright. Let me know in the comments if you have any Christmas party horror stories of your own. Stay safe out there, and have a very merry and hopefully not scary holiday season. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more creepy content. See you next time.